Hi there, my name is Sally. Thank you so much for coming to my YouTube channel, How I Got There from Cult Survivor to Writer. If this is your first time here, thank you. I appreciate you stopping by. Please hit the subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything and nothing's gonna happen. All that's gonna happen is it's gonna show up in your feed on YouTube. So the next time you come up, turn on YouTube, my videos will be in a nice, easy place for you to find. It also helps me to be seen by other people. And so please subscribe, give a thumbs up, and if you're brave enough, leave me a comment. I love the comments. And if you're Jehovah's Witness, please leave me a comment. I love to hear from you. My last video that I went into, I talked about shunning and disfellowshipping, is what Jehovah's Witnesses call it. And a couple of others I've recently done are, sorry, I'm reading my screen over here, is Jehovah's Witnesses, a pedophile playground. And I've also done one on their dating and how I ended up being judged by the elders. That one, I was 16. And that was what initially launched me out of the Jehovah's Witness world. I was questioned by 3 men in a room by myself at the age of 16 and asked very explicit sexual questions. And so those are 3 videos I suggest that if you have time, I keep them all short. I try to keep them under 20 minutes that you listen to. If you hear a little sound, and you've watched my other videos, you knew I had a cat, and my kitty cat's no longer with me. But I've got a little dog, I've got a big dog here with me for a couple of weeks, and she's a little anxious, and so she makes little sounds when she hears, thunder, or she hears thunder, or she hears a neighbor say something walking by. So she might bark. She's okay. She's sitting right here beside me. It's Fiona. So she's now talking to me. So today I want to talk about a time period that I sort of left out when I started doing these videos. The name of my channel is How I Got There from Cult Survivor to Writer. And so I talk all the way up until I was about 19. And then I skipped up until my mid-40s when I decided to become a writer. So there's a huge gap in there. And that gap is there because I don't think I was ready to talk about it. I was ready to tell you how I got out and tell you how I moved forward. But there was a struggle, a very big struggle in between. And I think only people who've been in a cult or ex-Jehovah's Witnesses really understand that. So if you're here and you've not had any experience with a cult, this is going to be an eye-opening story for you. And you will understand why I think the Jehovah's Witnesses need to go away. Just look at the titles of all my videos and it'll be quite clear. So backing up, I was told to leave the home, my home at, I had just turned 17, was, like a few days after I turned 17. And my mother had given me an ultimatum between the boy, whose name was Greg, and he was my high school sweetheart. And I was to choose between him or Jehovah. And I chose him because of all that had happened in my home. I knew Jehovah was a lie. My home was filled with physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse. It was, and the Kingdom Hall was the same. There was nobody there who was my friend once they found out that I didn't want to be a Jehovah's Witness. So it was a no-brainer for me to leave. However, the choice to leave and actually leaving and succeeding and surviving in an outside world that you've been taught to fear and hate, and you think that Jehovah is going to destroy the world at any moment, and if you don't follow him, you're going to die. It's very hard to go from A to B. Now, I didn't believe in Jehovah, so I didn't believe in the Armageddon thing that was going to happen, but a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses do. But what I brought with me was all of the emotional trauma, physical trauma, mental trauma. I brought that with me out into the world, and it closed it up inside myself because I thought that was normal. I thought the way that I grew up was the way everybody grew up. After all, I was very sheltered. I'd never, got to have sleepovers at anybody's house that wasn't a Jehovah's Witness. It's all I saw. It's all I knew. And so when I left, I went to live with my dad, who I'd never lived with, and I'd barely spent any time with him. And my whole childhood, it was probably like 1 week every 2 or 3 years. So even though he was my father, I was still kind of afraid because I didn't know what to expect. And so I actually had to wait for him to, he was in the Navy and he was at sea. So I had to wait for him to come back. And so I lived with my family who didn't talk to me for a couple of months. And then I was shipped off and I was in this whole new world in San Diego. I had to go to a new high school in the middle of my senior year. I didn't know anybody. Actually, it wasn't the middle. It was the middle of the first semester of my senior year. And I didn't know anybody. It was like a completely my whole world was different. And I also didn't have to do the 3 meetings a week, all the studies. I didn't have to go door to door anymore. So there was like this block of time and I was like, I don't know what to do, And I don't think my dad knew what to do with me either because, here was this girl. I mean, I'm his daughter, but, we'd never had, shared a house since I was like 2. So me as an emotionally immature person, I lived out my senior year and I tried to do the best I could. I made some friends, and I stayed in my relationship with my boyfriend who was up in Northern California. And a lot happened. I mean, there wasn't much, me just trying to go to school and survive. Just going scared every day. Here I'm a high school senior. It should be the time of my life. I should be, going to football games and having fun. But instead, I had all this anger and emotional trauma and all the trauma. It was just trauma from all my childhood. And what I did was I just kind of bottled it up and just said, I'm going to forget about all that stuff that happened. They don't talk to me. I don't need that anymore. I'm just moving on. But so I bottled it up and I moved on. Different things happened over the next couple years. I tried to go to junior college. I'm dyslexic and I'm creative and I had a really hard time. And so that didn't really work for me. I ended up moving back up to Northern California, getting a job and working, and I was still with my boyfriend. I just wasn't a very happy person. I wasn't a good person because I was just surviving, and everything had happened to me. I was just, every time it would pop up a memory, I would just push it back down. And I'm going to fast forward here a few years, age 20, when I got married. Woo-hoo-hoo. Yes. I got married to somebody who I thought would be good for me. He was 10 years older. He was already established in his career. He had a family, you know, he had brothers and sisters and a mom and dad. He came from a good Midwestern home. He went to church, you know, so I thought, okay, he'd be a very stable person, you know. At the time, he was good looking, but he's not the same. He's now very overweight. But anyway, at the time, and so I, not ever having dated except for my one high school boyfriend, I didn't know anything about relationships really, or, you know, how to behave or what should happen. And so we ended up getting married because we wanted a family, right? I mean, that's what I wanted. I just wanted a family. So I got married. And then I had 3 children. And the children are wonderful. They're grown men now. But during this time, remember, I had pushed all of these feelings and emotions down. And the person who I married started to become a different person, as in he started going down this path with his religion where it became, sorry, that's Fiona, where he became to become more and more legalistic and rules. And that started things in me to come up that I remembered as a child, and it didn't feel right to me. Like he said, no Halloween, and, you know, women need to not, women need to have babies no matter what. There was just a lot of things. He believed that there's only a certain number of people that God is saving, and not everybody has the opportunity to be saved because it's already been decided upon who's going to be saved. A lot of other weird things. But as I started to grow older and mature and began to develop a sense of my own person, and actually started discovering I had a voice and I could help people, and just started to discover things that I loved to do. And it wasn't cooking and cleaning, I'll tell you that. And it wasn't, you know, like, oh, honey, you're home. I folded your socks and here's your cigar, okay? So as he started becoming more and more legalistic, and I started discovering more and more about myself, he started trying to push me down. And he started treating me not so lovingly as he told people men should treat their wives. You know, women should obey their husbands, but the husbands need to treat, these were his words, the husbands need to treat their wives like the church. Well, he didn't treat me that way. And again, around this time, I started to experience severe panic attacks, because remember, I had bottled up that life, and it's got to come out. It comes out in anger. It comes out, and these are all signs of depression. It comes out in anger. It comes out in panic attacks. It comes out in not being able to sleep, just in behaviors. So there was, and I lost a lot of weight, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. Like, I had panic attacks and I thought I was dying. I had like a 6-month period where I couldn't leave the home. And it was debilitating. And here I had a person who wasn't helping me. He was telling me that I didn't love God enough, and that I just needed to pray more and God would help me. But that doesn't, you know, of course I was praying, but that doesn't mean I wasn't depressed. And so I started to get help for depression. I forgot how that exactly happened, but something just clicked in me. I read something somewhere, and somebody said something to me, and I didn't believe it at first, but then I was like, you know what, I've tried all these other things. So hold on a second. So why not just try, you know, going this depression route? You know, it's not going to hurt anything. So it turns out when I went to the doctor and I filled out the form, she's like, "Oh yeah, you got 9 out of the 10 things on this list." It's like, "Oh, okay." So that explains a lot. So I started taking, the little prescription she gave me, and I started to get counseling, and I started repairing myself. And the more and more I repaired, the more and more my ex-husband pulled away from me. I think he liked me when I was this little dutiful, yes, 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 whatever you say person, as opposed to the real me who's outgoing, energetic, fun, and I talk to strangers. I sing and dance all the time. I'm a kind of a weirdo. And he didn't like this stuff that was coming out. And so as I got better and better, but I wasn't 100% better. I still had a lot of crap to deal with that I hadn't dealt with a big chunk of my past. I was just dealing now with part of it. I still didn't want to deal with the fact that my stepfather was a pedophile. I didn't want to deal with my mom, a lot of things. So I healed part of it. And it was about that time that we got divorced. And I moved back to California, which wasn't my intent. I just meant to, originally was to give him space so that he would do his repair work that when we went to the therapist together, he wasn't doing. So it was more like, okay, we're going to separate. And while I'm gone, you're going to do what you need to do to get healed. And so we can repair this marriage. I was still thinking, fine. He'd had an affair. He was lying to me. There was all kinds of stuff. And so as I was packing to leave, all the church ladies started calling me and telling me how wrong I was to leave. And I'm like, this is a separation. What are you talking about? How do you know my business? So he had gone to the church and told all of them what was going on. But however, he didn't tell them that he had an affair, which was the last straw, or that he was not getting the assistance he needed through counseling. He left that part off. So short story is I went from a cult to not having learn about myself, to grow as a human being, into a marriage that was doomed from the start. And so I left that, and I did some sacrifices for my kids because I didn't want them growing up shuffling from house to house like so many kids did. And I also wasn't emotionally ready. I couldn't handle 3 little boys and work. I hadn't had a job. And it was already very emotionally draining for me just to raise them. It was really hard. And so the deal we made was that he would have them during the school year and I would have them during the summer. And I thought that was an excellent way to do this. I had some other friends who had done that with their kids, and it seemed to work out. There was no shuffling back and forth every other night, and we had the holidays worked out. So that worked out. I know it was very traumatizing for my kids, and but I think it would have been worse if I'd stayed with him, because he was, my kids were starting to treat me the way their dad was treating me, and that's no fault of the children. They were mimicking what they saw in the house, and they were young. So fast forward, that was I was 35, I think, at the time, because it was 15 years that we were married. So I really stuck with it. I really did what I needed to do, but I just couldn't do it anymore. And so after that marriage failed, and I moved to California, and I got my job earning $9 an hour and had to get an apartment that cost basically my paycheck. I got some marital support, spousal support, but I also had to pay child support. So it really didn't work out that I had any extra money. Bad decision. I had a roommate, and the roommate happened to be my mom. And I was trying to be the good daughter and trying to be the good Christian and, show love. But now I see, as I look back, that was very damaging to me, because I still was trying to get my mom to accept me and love me for who I was. And she is incapable of that. And I don't know if it's because I'm not a Jehovah's Witness. She kept trying. And we would have conversations about childhood, and she could never accept the fact that she messed up, and that she should have taken her children out of this house, and that she shouldn't have listened to the elders. She should have done what a mother would have done, which was protect her babies. But I understand when you're in a cult and you're in an abusive relationship that's hard to do. But she wasn't in that abusive relationship anymore. And it would have just been nice if we could have had a conversation, and, she could have just owned what happened and said she was sorry, and then still loved me unconditionally. There were so many conditions. And here I was thinking, okay, so, she lived with me for quite a few years. And then I met a man who I thought was amazing. Again, I wasn't in the right place. I mean, I thought I was. I thought I was all better, but still I hadn't dealt with a lot of crap. So he was very, very attentive. He was very suave, although he wasn't. I mean, he was kind of a mess, but he always knew the right thing to say and do. And he wasn't like my first husband. He could have a conversation, and he introduced me to new music and, things. And in the beginning, he was fun, and we would do things together. And then we lived together. We had home together, and then we got married, and we purchased a home. And about the time, the time we purchased a home, this was about 5 years into the relationship. And there had been a few red flags before, but because I'm a person who likes to fix things, we went to counseling, and it was like, okay, we've got the solution. We went like 10 times over like a year. We would go in and have our counseling session, then we would do our homework. So he was very good at doing the homework and wanting to get better. And so it was great. But what I didn't know, and what a lot of people didn't know, but some very key people did know, was that he was a pathological liar, and he had a gambling addiction, and he started to change after we got comfortable in our home. And I think what happened was that's when his gambling really kicked in, and he couldn't hide his lies anymore. And in the end, so we were together 9 years. I know, I look back at it and go, I should have ditched him, But when you're with somebody who's a pathological liar, you don't know that they're lying. You don't know that they're not telling you the truth, because I don't lie. Why would I think he would tell me, literally, this is one of his lies? I would get up in the morning at like 4:45, and I would go in my little room and write, and then I would go to work. He would get up around 6:15, and he would get dressed and he would go to work. I left around 7:45. Well, he came back home at 8:15 in the morning. He did that a lot. He did it so much that he used up his 4 weeks of vacation that he had every year. He also, there was a lot of, anything you could imagine, he lied about it. There was a time where we got our tax return, and he was, the same day we got the tax return money in the checking account, he was out driving his car, and he went into a ditch, and this and this and this happened, and the car was in the shop, and he needed, exactly was like $50 less than what our tax return was. He needed that to get the car repaired. Okay, well, gosh, good thing we got the tax return, right? That's what I'm thinking. But you know what? He could never produce a receipt. I kept asking him, can I have the receipt for that? Oh yeah, I'll get it. And then, you know, he said, oh yeah, I got it, it's at work. And he'd always have an excuse. And then I kind of forgot about it because I got busy. But now I know that money, nothing was ever wrong with the car. He went gambling. And in the end, he owed his parents $50,000. He owed his friends $50,000. We had just gone to a wedding, his cousin's wedding, and at the wedding he borrowed $5,000 from his cousin while we were there. He got a loan, a title loan on my car. The title was in my name. I'm not sure how he got that loan. He had 5 payday loans, and payday loans have, I was a little shocked, the interest on them is 437% interest. He had a bunch of credit cards. And so that was the end of that. I just was done. He was gone. I changed the locks on the house, sold the house, ended up living in a place that a friend owned. It was nice. I had a room, and guess my mom came with me. It's a whole other story there. But so I had a place to live, and that is where my healing really began, because I'm a writer. And after all this process, well, during my divorce process, prior to that, when I was finding out things, I was at a dinner with a bunch of literary agents and writers and editors, and we were talking about childhood and mothers, and my friends all encouraged me to share my story at the table. And one of the agents said, well, Sally, why aren't you writing that story? And it just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. That story is hard to tell. And write it for children. And I said, well, I just don't know how to tell it. I don't want it to come off as a preachy book. I want it to be helpful for children. I'm talking like high school age. And she said, well, you just got to write it. And so I walked away from this like, I have no idea how I'm going to write this. And it already gave me hives. I just started like, I can't do that. And then I kind of put it aside for a little bit. And then I got divorced. And then I found myself living in this house with other people and my mom and my pets. And I went to a writer's conference in LA. And I went to the class that was called How to Fictionalize True Life Events. And I was like, okay, I'll go to that class. That's going to be helpful. By the third speaker, I was so convinced I was going to write this book. And I had a way to do it. I left the room because I was like visibly shaking. I was emotionally worn out. And I go out in the hallway, and there's a lady standing there. And this is the big convention center in LA. And she's standing by the window, just looking at the window. And I, go over, get a cup of water, and I see her name tag. And it's the same last name as Greg from high school. It's a very long Italian name, and it's not common. I've never seen it on anybody else. And I asked her, I said, do you know Greg? And she's like, well, yeah, that's my cousin. And I was like, wow, okay. So that really blew me away. Here I'm sitting here trying to figure out how I'm going to write this story, and I'm emotionally drained from it, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. So I got this sign, like, okay, got it, I'm going to do it. I went home and I started drafting it, and my mother is in the other room, and I'm writing this story, and it's very angry when I'm writing it. My first draft is very angry, and it's fiction, so I had to change some of the characters, and I pulled in from some other people that I met, on Facebook groups, but it's my story. It's my feelings, it's my emotions. And so I kind of went dark, in a dark place. And so I had to go back to therapy. And that really helped. And I could feel myself healing. And I'm also dating. But I'm dating. I'm not have a boyfriend. So I learned my lesson. And so I went to another workshop. It was an all-day workshop. With a group of writer friends in Oakland, and we went afterwards to the book signing, and there was a book author there. Her name is Stacy Lee, and she's an awesome Asian American writer who writes for young adults, and we happened to have a connection. And I said, Stacy, she works with Greg's brother. She was an attorney. And I told her that, and she said, it's so nice to meet you, and are you writing the book that you just told me about? And I told her yes, and she said, that's awesome, keep writing it. So she gave me a little lift, but it was another connection. I just kept having these things happen. And so I wrote the book. I had my critique partners read it. I drafted it down again because it was a little hostile. It was a little angry because it was my emotions coming out. It was my healing. And then I got an agent, and she wanted my book, but she wanted me to write it again for younger age groups. So I'd written it for high school. She wanted it for junior high. So I said, okay, she's going to represent me. She said, and when it's done, then we'll sell it to a publisher. I was like, okay. I don't care if it's for junior high age kids. I just want this to get out there. And then COVID happened. Okay. So now I'm alone in a home. I'm very alone. I have no one, to talk to at night. I have no one, to share what I'm going through with. And I'm rewriting this novel that's my childhood all over again. And I had to call into work a few times and say, I can't work today. I was crying when I called. I said, I'm too emotional. There's too much going on emotionally. I just can't come in. I can't do my job. And my boss was fine. She said, okay, take a couple mental health days. Thank God for that. I found another counselor, and since it was COVID, there was no office visits, and so I did phone visits. I talked to my pastor's wife, who's a good friend. Her and I went for walks. That was very helpful. We stood 6 feet apart. And so with that, part of the trauma that I was reliving again and again and again was my mom was still living with me, and I was having sort of some PTSD from that. And I was beginning to realize I'm a little bit slow. That, and talking to my counselor, my therapist, she said, Sally, why does your mom live with you? I said, because there's nobody else that'll help her. My mom had not prepared for her future because she was a Jehovah's Witness, so she didn't have a savings. She had no place to go. And I have 6 siblings, and nobody was helping. And 4 of them are Jehovah's Witnesses, and 3 of us are not. And I can understand why the non-Jehovah's Witnesses didn't want to help her, because we've been shunned or not included. And so she gave me the courage and gave me the words to say to my brother, to say, I can't do this anymore. It's causing me emotional trauma. It's bringing up a lot of things from the past. And Mom isn't willing to work on anything. And I said, I am emotionally done. I can't do it anymore. And I felt bad that I had to give my mom to my brother, but it worked out. And after she was gone out of my house, I had such a sense of relief, because I quit trying to please my mom. Here I'm 50-something years old, and I'm still trying to please my mom. So I quit doing that. And that's when I really started, finished my book, and it was out to get sold. And I moved back to Florida, and I bought a condo. I just moved. I said, I'm done with California. I'm gonna be near my kids, my family. I'm gonna live the life that I wanna live. I'm gonna do my dream, which is right. And I'm gonna live up in a place where I can enjoy the outdoors, where it's not so expensive. And so I did. I just packed up and I bought my condo and moved across country, all within it was 20 days. So I got here to Florida and I got all set up, and I'm waiting for my book deal to come through, and then and I'm still writing, and at this point I've got a job. I'm trying to work, and I'm dating a really awesome person at this point. And then everything crashed. My agent decided to change agencies, and so my book was given back to me. I was agentless. The guy I was dating broke up with me. And so I had a whole month where I just cried. It wasn't the person that I wanted to be. I wanted to be stronger than that. But I think it's because I had so much happen, and it was just a relief. So I went back into therapy, and this time my therapist was a specialist in PTSD, and she nailed my PTSD right there on the head and told me that was what my problem had been for the last 20 years. I had the depression, but I hadn't, like I said, remember, I didn't address part of that. And so I was basically living my life on full throttle all the time down the middle lane, and anything that happened was like a crash course emotionally, or crash into a wall emotionally. I was very amazed at spending 4 sessions with her, how my healing process came, and how much clearer my life became, and how much changed about me. And so after all of this happened, I decided my voice needs to be shared. It all happened because of the Jehovah's Witnesses. It all happened because my mom joined a cult. And I keep seeing these stories and I keep hearing these stories, and I'm gonna share my story, is what I said. So that's why I have this YouTube channel. That's why I wrote this book. It's called The Truth is a Lie. The link is down below. I'm still looking for an agent for it, but if I don't get an agent, that's fine. My book is still going to be read by people who want to read it. I typically don't go this long on my videos, so I appreciate those of you who've stuck through this. I'm still writing. I write every day. I have about 4 books now. I have 3 that are published, but I am working for older kids now, and it takes a little bit longer. I'm currently looking for an agent. And I've made a switch in my life with my career. I am now self-employed. That allows me to do my dream, which is writing. And I'm like in the first 2 weeks of being self-employed, and I have my first client. So I'm so excited for that. So I'm doing coaching and consulting for small businesses. And I also coach writers. So that's my passion. So I'm shared this story with you because if you are a Jehovah's Witness and you are getting out, don't just think that you can just leave. Please, I urge you to get counseling, to see somebody with your emotional and your mental health. It's very important that you get that part of your life taken care of so that you can integrate back into society. A lot of people struggle with friendships and just getting back into the world, and it's an easy fix with some great mental health care. And you say you can't afford it. Trust me, I couldn't afford anything that I did, but I found a way to pay for it. There's people who will work with you on your budget. There's all kinds of people who will help you. Get on to, I'm going to put a link below about a great Facebook group that's for empowering you. It's not bashing Jehovah's Witnesses. It's not bashing cults. There's no proselytizing. It's a safe place for you, and it teaches you how to be empowered. So I'm going to put that below. And again, please subscribe, and I appreciate your comments. And I thank you for being patient with me and listening to my long life story. But I shared this with you because I want you to see what it's like to get out of a cult. And it's not, hey, I just got out. If you don't have the emotional support, if you don't have the support around you with family and friends, or people who are your family and friends, but they don't understand the cult mindset because they've never been in a cult, that's great to have them, but they can't truly understand what's going on in here. And sometimes you need someone like that. So bless you for being here. Thank you. I don't know what I'm going to talk about next time, but we'll see. So have a wonderful day.